Hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. I, of course, am Mr. Warren Hayes, and we are going to be talking about professional wrestling for a couple of hours tonight, right here on youtube.com/Mr. Warren Hayes. We're on your favorite podcast application, wherever you find the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. You're listening to it, like right now, literally, but just so you know. So we are going to be talking about pro wrestling. It's going to be, I believe, a little shorter than the usual affair. Look, I wasn't able to stream as much this week to get some choice stuff out and usable for the podcast. Life just came at me this week. There was just a lot. Look, it's just one of those things that just overwhelmed, but I did manage to squeeze out what you're going to get. Here's the thing. It might not be the quantity this week, but the quality of what I'm covering this week. Oh, it's going to leave you, your heart's going to flutter. You're going to get all flushed. You're going to be, oh my, listen to all this quality content from Warren Hayes. Because listen, we're reviewing New Japan Pro Wrestling's Power Struggle 2024. We're going over the trio of WWE releases as well. And I'm also giving some thoughts on the Kota Ibushi weirdness, right? That's been happening for some reason. So, as you can tell, not exactly a whole smorgasbord of wrestling topics, but what we're going to do here, oh boy, it's going to be quality. It's going to be quality. Trust me, or your money back. The joke's on you. No money involved. Listen, join the Discord. The link is in the description. Let's just go right ahead. Thank you very much for being here. Let's get to it. On Friday, November 1st, we learned that Baron Corbin, Indy Hartwell, and Tegan Knox were no longer with WWE. This all started with Baron Corbin putting out a tweet. He was the first to sort of get into that situation. He posted the following tweet. Quote, "That's all she wrote, folks. It's been real, and I appreciate everyone who supported me," along with a gif of his entrance while he was the lone wolf. Fightful Select, then Sean Ross Sapp, then got on board and confirmed that Corbin, not only that Corbin had left, but also Indy Hartwell and Tegan Knox were no longer with the company, which was then also confirmed by both ladies on social media. Now, the way it was worded, and this is not a knock on anyone, like this is just like the way it was worded was that these were departures from the company. When pressed a little bit by fans, people online asking, well, are they departures is pretty vague. Were they released? Were they, what exactly were they released? What happened, right? Won't someone tell us what happened? Sean Ross Sapp then confirmed that Baron Corbin had just simply had his contract run out. He was not renewed with the company, whereas Indy Hartwell and Tegan Knox were indeed releases. I don't know if anyone is truly surprised by any of this. Well, I think maybe you could be surprised by Baron Corbin. No, I'm going to retract that a little bit. I think, Indy and Tegan, maybe not exactly the best use of them, over the past few months on WWE television. Maybe everyone was just sort of shrugging their shoulders and going, didn't know. I don't think it's that much of a. I don't think it's that much of a shock. I would wager, but when it comes to Baron Corbin, you could look. Honestly, you can make the argument in both ways. But when you consider the man's career in WWE, it's a little surprising. You go, oh, really? Yeah. Despite the fact that he hasn't been necessarily been used like it hasn't been tremendous use for him, right? He hadn't been exactly riding the highs that his career once had. Look, let's just run it through really quickly. He started wrestling, actually got into wrestling when he was assigned to NXT back in 2012. I was going to say 2012. That's not a number. That's just not a number. It just doesn't exist. But he did join WWE in 2012, moved up to the main roster in 2016, where he debuted at WrestleMania in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royale, which he won, and now that I'm seeing it here, that I hadn't thought about it when I was putting my notes together, but saying it out loud, I'm like, well, there you go. There's another Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal winner who is no longer with the company. I'm telling you, that Battle Royal is a curse. It's not an indication of how far you're going to get in WWE. It certainly turns into a countdown clock. And I mean, Corbin he was always in the mix, whether it's on the mid card and, teasing, working with upper card guys, main card dudes, he was always in the mix, right? He won the Money in the Bank the year after, right? He held the United States Championship, and he won the 2019 King of the Ring tournament, which also made him the top heel of Monday Night Raw during that gimmick switch, during that tenure, right? That's where he really hit his highs. And of course, I guess his last big kayfabe accomplishment was winning the NXT Tag Team Championships with Braun Breaker this year, actually. I don't really think, and aside from that, like, this is a guy, before we get into any deeper analysis here, this is also a guy who has been in feuds with Roman Reigns, with John Cena, with Kurt Angle. Like, he wasn't just like a throwaway mid-card act. This is a guy that WWE pushed and wanted to see things happen, and, had some kind of investment in making Baron Corbin happen, despite being an extremely limited and unexciting professional wrestler. No matter how many articles I pulled up just to gather my notes, just to research things, just to jog my memory also at the same time, no matter how many articles I've seen, and there's always a caveat when an article is talking positively about Baron Corbin. There's always a caveat of, well, he may not be the most exciting pro wrestler. Like, there's always that, or he's not a great technician. But then when they turn to the positive, is like, he can get heat, he's a good mic worker, so on and so forth. But it feels like even the most staunchest defenders of Baron Corbin are even in agreement there where, he's not a great pro wrestler. And I think, look, for some reason, Vince McMahon just took a shine to this guy and ensured that his pushes would continue. I couldn't tell you what exactly Vince saw in him, but I guess he made him laugh. I guess the idea that Corbin was probably very easy to work with, because from all accounts that I've heard, he's super chill, nice dude, and does what he's there to do what needs to be done. So if Vince wants an angle where he's going to have dog food poured on him just because Vince will think it's funny, well, then, he'll go ahead and do it, because that's what you do. You make the boss happy, right? I guess he really didn't have an issue with how he was being presented. He just wanted to do stuff and continue getting paid. And the number of times that this guy has been revamped. Okay, he came in. He was doing the lone wolf gimmick with the skullet, right? Then we had General Manager Corbin, right, when he was dressed like an Applebee's server, and then he did the King of the Ring stuff, and then he was King Corbin. And he was King Corbin for it felt like 60 years, right? But he truly was like the top heel, and even when he was General Manager, right, that's a big heel spot to have. I'm telling you, Vince saw things in Baron Corbin that most of us just didn't understand. And then after that, he did, and then there was the down on his luck Corbin, and then Happy Corbin, which has to be the most grating and annoying persona that he's ever had. Yeah, and you can make an argument as to whether Baron Corbin was really getting good heat or was getting go away heat. You can absolutely make that, like throughout his career, actually. Like, I don't know. I think a lot of fans sort of romanticize his tenure, but he had his issues. He's had his issues. You know, and guys backstage didn't necessarily understand what was the nature of the push, why he was getting all these opportunities, right? Wasn't it like when he won Money in the Bank, right? You remember he tried to cash it in and was a complete disaster. And it's from that point on that he truly became a goofball character. It's from that point on that he stopped being a serious character and then became sort of more of a goofball kind of heelish type character, but that you never really took seriously. And if memory serves me right, there were rumors that he had heat backstage from some of the boys who were like, why is this guy getting all these opportunities, right? Because he was getting into a feud with Cena, and he lost the Money in the Bank match, and then he lost his SummerSlam match against Cena because Cena basically went to Vince and said, I don't think he's ready. So Vince, if there's one guy that Vince has always trusted, it's John Cena, who's like consistently in his ear. So, Vince goes, he's not ready. All right, then we'll put a pin in this. Yeah. Like the cash in loss, if I remember correctly, was a last minute decision. Like it was something that was just, anyway, there were a lot of people who were bemused by the amount of opportunities he was getting, and that then was reflected in this situation here. And like I said, afterwards, I don't think he ever truly recovered to the point where perceiving Baron Corbin as a serious wrestler. I think that time was done afterwards, where he was just like, no, he's just a crank now. He's just a corny, weird guy. And I don't want to say he never recovered from that, because he did very well in his career, but he never went back to the stature or the potential that he once had. How about that? Yeah, and when we're running down the gimmicks, there was the Happy Corbin, and then there's the God of Wrestling thing. Man, like they saddled him with JBL. They tried to make him serious again, to make him come across as a real deal pro wrestler by saddling him up with JBL to be his mouthpiece and get him over. But you can only do comedy and be perceived as a geek for so long before it just becomes ingrained into the minds of fans. And unless you are a truly special talent, it's really hard to rise above that afterwards and then reestablish yourself as a serious competitor. Like, the best comparison that I could come up with is, the best comp, but it's not a one-to-one comp, but maybe not a comp, but as an example. How about that? Not a comparison, but an example. Let's say Toru Yano wanted to go back to being, the serious, killer that his gimmick used to be, right? He can't do that anymore. Or, people would just outright reject it. So when JBL is coming up, hitting the microphone and saying, this is a wrestling god, you're like, no, this is a fucking goofball. This is a guy who's been doing comedy, and doing bad one-liners. Happy Corbin with his pal, whatever the fuck. I don't remember the other guy's name, which is fine by me. Riddick Moss. Madcap Moss. Oh, unfortunately, I worked myself back into remembering it. Oh, geez. The memories are flooding back, and I'm worse off now. My day's kind of ruined. But not, well, not ruined. I might be slightly exaggerating here for the bit. Yeah, it's just, you couldn't take him seriously anymore. JBL could have, there was a lot of rehab that needed to be done after years and years and years of being presented as a coward, as a goofball, as a, just a geek, just a well-paid, high-position geek. Right? I mean, Kurt Angle, don't forget that too, right? As we're thinking about this, don't forget, like, he retired Kurt Angle. And the match that Kurt Angle has later disavowed, right? Is that, no, I didn't like that match. And I didn't like Baron Corbin, right? This is fucking Kurt Angle, and you're giving him Baron Corbin, again, a guy who isn't a great wrestler, and a guy that Kurt Angle, and Kurt Angle, he himself was considered a tremendous wrestler, right? Everyone figured it'd be John Cena. Why wouldn't you give him John Cena? That would have made the most sense. It would have been a very full circle moment. Why didn't we do that? Anyway, we're not rehashing all of that. It's just to point out, again, like there were these tremendous opportunities and he was put in these great positions, but nonetheless, everyone just sort of shrugged and like, who is this guy? Why this guy? Why Baron Corbin? Well, it's a Vince thing. It's a Vince thing. It just an extremely mid wrestler, but a guy that Vince felt that he could mold, that he could adjust and make him his own in any way, shape, or form. And that's what he turned out to be. So I guess to circle back to the start, when I said you could make an argument as to whether this was surprising or not, I think after everything I said here, it is kind of surprising considering the career and where he had been positioned on the card in WWE. So I guess it is a little surprising. But when you factor in the reality that he was clearly a Vince guy and that Triple H has already shown that he has his own guys, and perhaps a guy like Bobby Lashley ended up leaving because he's clearly not a Triple H guy. Maybe it makes a lot of sense from that angle, from that perspective, or at least maybe that doesn't make this decision that surprising. Maybe it ends up just being, oh, well, this kind of makes sense when you look at it this way. So, I mean, I don't know if this guy's ever going to wrestle again. Like, this is not a guy who's going to go slum it on the indies, right? He's got so many other passions. Like, I think he's fine. I think he's done good to himself, and it's a guy who's never run the indies. Why would he go now? I think barring a return to WWE, I think this is it for Baron Corbin. I don't think this is a guy that requires Tony Khan to look at. I don't think he'd want necessarily to go hang out in TNA. But then again, look, you never know. You got guys like you've got JBL down there hanging around, right? You've got Nick Nemeth hanging around down there. Maybe but then at the same time, you're like, well, TNA's cutting costs and they're reducing the roster, but it's TNA. You never know what's going on in their brains. And the allure of a former WWE star is always, but like for sure, he's not slumming it on the indies. I would wager that this is it for him until WWE calls him back and gives him a Legends contract and puts him in the Hall of Fame for no apparent reason, because you cannot make a proper case for Baron Corbin in any Hall of Fame, but it's the WWE Hall of Fame, right? Like, this is a guy that while he was the top heel in the company, or one of the top heels, ratings were down. During the entire year he was positioned as the top guy, ratings just kept slipping. So I don't know, like, good for him, like, ultimately good for him, because I think he did well for himself. I'm sure he was smart with his money. I'm sure he's fine. And at any extent, he really doesn't need pro wrestling anymore. I'd assume he just doesn't really need it anymore. You know, when you think about Triple H maybe divesting himself of guys who were clearly Vince projects, right? Or that Vince kept for XYZ reasons, right? I wonder who else might be sweating their job right now. I mean, there's a couple of names that come to mind, right? And I'm sure there's a couple of names that come to mind in your case as well. Austin Theory is one that you couldn't have had a more Vince project than Austin Theory, because Vince was in vignettes with him. That was his project. Or other guys that Vince has always kept around for some reason, even though he never really used them, or like Apollo Crews, but I feel like every time rounds of cuts come around, we always talk about Apollo Crews, and it's like, well, he always seems to survive. He always seems to hang on to his job. A guy like Shinsuke Nakamura, not that he was necessarily a Vince guy, but a guy that, does Triple H have plans for him? Does Triple H really have something for him? You know, I've heard rumors going around about Shinsuke and what he would like to do next year. You know, there's a certain famous retirement year happening in 2025, and yes, John Cena, but not just John Cena. It starts to make you wonder, right? These guys that were, I think it's clear as day now. You see very, very clearly who is well regarded and well positioned in WWE and who they perceive as people that will help carry the company into the future and into the now as well. I think it's very clear who they think their people are, and there's going to be some folks. There's going to be some folks that are going to be tossed to the wayside, or are just going to continue being completely ignored. People who maybe previously used to have some interesting spots, right? Some good spots on the card. Indy Hartwell, as we mentioned, let's move on to her, was one of the two cuts, actually, that were actual releases. She signed with WWE in 2019, debuted in January 2020. Look, she was in a significant angle of that era of NXT, which was the way, you know, the LeRae Gargano family thing with Dexter Lumis and Austin Theory. There was all that stuff, and she won the NXT Women's Championship in April 2023, just before getting called up. She had like one or two defenses. Like I think she defended it once, and she never lost it. Okay, she defended it twice. Once against Zoe Stark, another in a three-way match, and then it was vacated. So weird. Anyway, she ended up on main roster. I never got it with Indy. I never quite understood. I think a lot of WWE fans got really attached to her because of the Dexter Lumis thing, and thought that she was such great work, you know. But I've never really seen it. I think she's always been a very bland wrestler. Bland charisma, bland in ring. Like there was just nothing there. It's just one of these bizarre hires that you look at her and you're like, what did they see? What was the thing? What was the thing that this impeccable scouting work that WWE does, right? That is impeccable and flawless. What did they see in Indy Hartwell? I don't understand. And I think, if anything, she was more suited for NXT in the smaller rooms, because I think that when she ended up going to main, it only highlighted a lot of her issues, a lot of her deficiencies, and it's things that are just not going to work out, man. It's things that, you know, at some point you have the charisma. There's parts of charisma that can't be taught, and I think she kind of hit her ceiling physically as well. Like, anyway, I don't want to bury the woman under the earth. That's not the point. She lost her job and it sucks, but you know, it's like, yeah, this makes a lot of sense, because it was always a very strange hire and with a push that I never quite understood either. As far as Tegan Nox goes, look, Tegan Nox is a really sucky story. It's one that makes you feel kind of shitty that she did eventually get released, because she came in like she was a pretty good prospect from the British Indies, right? And when WWE picked her up, there was a lot of people who were very interested. Were like, oh, this is good. This is a good addition to their women's roster. She debuted in WWE in 2017 and did the original Mae Young Classic, right? And she famously blew out her ACL during the tournament and had to be replaced. Then she comes back in 2018, healthy. She reports to NXT and does the second Mae Young Classic, where she blows out all of her, like her knees explode, right? Like she broke the busted ACL, like both of her legs were just destroyed, right? She just completely, everything just shattered. And so that was another terrible setback for her. She returned in 2020, got injured again. So like she never really had the chance. Like she's been in this program since 2017, folks. She's been in WWE, in the system since that time. And most of that time has been spent rehabbing, getting back on her feet, getting things back in order. You have to feel bad in this circumstance where it's just like a series of completely unfortunate events that bogged her down, that kept her from doing anything of note. And you know, she gets called up to Maine and they don't know what to do with her. They have her do like rainbow fucking colored hair. She did a thing with Shotzi, with Shotzi for a while. Didn't she do a thing with Natalia too? Like they tried to find something to do with her, but there was just nothing. And by that time, that crop of women that she had come in were all on other levels or had also moved on. And they had a whole other group of younger women who were in there who were healthy, ready to go. And that's all. This is going to be the stigma, right? This is going to be the thing that she's going to have to live with moving forward, is that, you know, Tegan Knox, she's banged up. She's banged up big time. You know, both her knees. So to that degree, you know, I don't know who signs her. I don't know what, you know, if there's a promotion out there that decides to pick her up. Like, you don't go, hey, Tony Khan, you know, sign Tegan Knox. Tony Khan would be like, yeah, you know what? I've already got people on my roster who are cutting a paycheck while being injured and doing jack shit. So no, I'm not going to take that risk again. Like, it sucks, but you know, the situation with Knox is that she has to reestablish herself. She has to once again make a name for herself. She had started to do that on the indies, got signed, and then everything, you know, it's no one's to blame. Just fucking really terrible injuries just keep piling up. She can never gain momentum. People just don't remember her. The people who were, I would even argue that the people who were into Tegan Knox back in 2017 are no longer watching pro wrestling. Like, it's 7 years, brother. You know, there's a cycle in this stuff. And I think there's a lot of people back then who just aren't watching anymore. And regardless, like, even for people like me, I'm like, yeah, she was a good little wrestler back then. But what about now? What about 7 years later? She's in her late 20s at this point. And she's barely had any ring time since. So what is the situation? What are we doing? Like, what is Tegan Knox in 2024? And I think it's got to be a little disheartening for her to have to rebuild herself when she already had a reputation. Now she has to create it all back from scratch. I'll be curious to see how this is going to go down. Look, if she goes back to the indies in the UK, she will be welcomed with open arms, is what I was trying to say. I think she even tweeted out, right, that Nixon Newell is back, something to that effect, 90 days, right? And there's more proof that these were releases because the 90-day clause is kicking in. Yeah, I don't know. I wish her the best of luck. I really, really wish her the best of luck, and I hope things go her way. But you know, she's got a journey ahead of her again, and it kind of sucks. But look, we'll see how it goes. And it's funny, right? Because I see all these people. So I've seen a lot of comments from people going, "Oh, Tegan Knox, she did such great things in WWE. She was such a cornerstone." I'm like, what did she do? What did I miss? I'm pretty sure, like, if Tegan Nox had been like this tremendous boon to the women's division, I would have seen it. And not because she wouldn't have been, but because the injuries kept her from doing anything. Again, like it's one of these circumstances where I'm like, fans, relax. Not everything always has to be great, and we can be grounded in reality and just be like, yeah, you know what, this sucks, but the reality is this: she wasn't able to do anything properly because her injuries kept her from doing it. And then maybe some booking. We're not gonna put it all. Look, hey, we're not gonna put this all on the fault of the booking. There might be some, we're not going to put this all on the fault of the injuries. There might be just a little, maybe a little disinterest here. Didn't Triple H say at some point that he was going to take care of her? That didn't he do some kind of promise like that? Anyway, maybe I'm misremembering something. It doesn't matter. Anyway, so there you go. Baron Corbin, Indy Hartwell, Tegan Nox gone from WWE. What is going on with Kota Ibushi? There was a really interesting little blog post that was written on that was written up there on Dramatic DDT, to the question of what the hell is going on with Kota Ibushi, right? This was written. Hang on, I want to get my dates right. This was written earlier this week. Written on October 29th. So 2 days ago, as we're recording this on the 31st. There was let's read a bit of the post here. Yesterday, there was a discovery on Twitter over Kota Ibushi's recent return to DDT that suddenly came to an abrupt end. The discovery was his 2 DDT matches from August 25th and September 8th have both been scrubbed off Wrestle Universe and can no longer be watched on the service. And that's just wild. And not just like, they took the matches up, like they edited down the shows where you can still watch the shows, but the matches are gone. Like, if you go to watch the 25th August show on Wrestle Universe, his match is still talked about on the pre-show, and the match graphic still appears in the opening video. The match itself has been edited off the stream, and it goes straight from the end of match 5 to the video package of the main event. The card lineups on each video have some matches have been cut due to circumstances written at the bottom of the page. And DDT also pulled some of their recent YouTube videos of Ibushi's past matches that they originally uploaded to promote his return. This follows the news at the start of the month of Ibushi's 2 October dates with DDT being canceled, with no explanation given to anyone. And there's an update. A day after this post was written, Wrestle Universe has removed the Weapon Rumble match from July 21st, which featured Ibushi's actual return to DDT. like that's savage. That's savage. Like, CMLL is like, because Fred is pointing out that it's very petty. And another promotion that is extremely petty is CMLL. Like, they are tremendously petty. And thank you for the gifted membership, Anakin. I appreciate it. The Silver Apocalypse. Make sure that you thank our boy Anakin for the gifted sub. I appreciate it, Anna. Thank you very much. Ibushi's not even like the article says here. He's not even injured anymore. He's not injured. You know, he had a match with Gleet. You know, there's talk that he's going to return to AEW and so on and so forth. You know, he's acting weird. He's acting weird outside the fact that he's physically shot. Here's something interesting, right? We get some background here a little bit if we sort of skim through the article. Let's go. Let's just jump right in here. So if Ibushi's absence was not because of injury and not because let me say that again. If Ibushi's absence was not because of injury and was not because of other obligations getting in the way, then that suggests that there could have been a falling out between Ibushi and DDT. That's when I remembered what happened at the very end of the August 25th show. As the crowd was making their way to the exit, Mao and Shunma Katsumata announced their intentions to challenge for DDT's Tag Team Championships. Nothing unusual about that. They continued talking about their goals backstage during their post-show interview until Mao changed the subject and brought up Golden Star Syndrome. That was the phrase he used to describe Ibushi's fan base and the lapsed DDT fans who came to the show just to see him chase Old Glories again. Mao's point was the fans should not take the current generation for granted because they are the ones who kept DDT going after Ibushi left and the company went downhill from their peak of popularity. They were not the only wrestlers who made comments about Ibushi's return to DDT. Yuki Ueno also spoke about it backstage after his defeat in the main event. Ueno said DDT became what it is today thanks to Ibushi, and everyone should be grateful for that. Sanshiro Takagi loves him like family, which means Ueno also treats him like family. However, Ueno also questioned Ibushi's motive for returning to DDT and revealed there were other people in the company who are not happy he came back. Ueno wants to make DDT better, but he couldn't tell if Ibushi's intentions are the same. When Ibushi found out about those comments, he tweeted out his response. He wonders if the wrestlers were criticizing him out of jealousy. He isn't interested enough in getting involved any further and decided to ignore them. He also asked if those wrestlers are DDT's current aces and suggested if this deal isn't working out, he still has AEW to go to. Jesus Christ. At the time of writing, those comments are still the most recent tweets on his formerly Twitter account, the Everything app. Now they had talk here how Michael Nakazawa sort of stuck up for him and so on and so forth, but we want to get to this part here. The next part of the story takes a surprising turn. While our attention was on the Wrestle Universe story, Marvelous played a video at their show of Ibushi standing around in their dojo. It was a teaser to promote that Ibushi would be in attendance for the promotion's next Korakuen Hall event on December 1st. Even though Marvelous is a Joshi promotion first and foremost, there is often a men's match booked on the undercard of their shows. Ibushi went to his Instagram to talk about it and wondered if this video will be on their YouTube channel. I don't know if he meant it as a joke about his DDT videos being pulled down. Ibushi then turned his attention to his situation with DDT. I tried translating it, and the comments come out sounding negative. It sounds like Ibushi is accusing DDT of caring more about money than their 20 years of working together. His post also includes hashtags referring to Sanshiro Takagi, DDT collapsing as a company, and decisions being made to make up for a deficit. Whatever it is that Ibushi has a problem with, he would like to get an apology over it. Now his focus is going to be on the upcoming Marvelous show. So that's what I've been able to gather so far. Kota Ibushi and DDT have had a falling out, and it seems to stem from the comments made by Ueno and Mao. Whether this was just meant to be a promo to build up a future match and it blew up in everyone's face isn't fully clear to me. The few matches Ibushi had in DDT this year had nothing to do with the stable. There was a trios match where Ibushi got to fight Tetsuya Endo again, a nostalgia match where Ibushi reunited with other DDT figures from his generation, and the canceled bout was a freak show kickboxing comedy match where he would have treated his best friend Kota Ibushi as a human crash test dummy like he always does. Maybe something would have been set up for the end of the year Sumo Hall show, but I guess we'll never know. It sounds like it was DDT's decision to remove the videos. I remember early in New Japan World's existence when Ogawa successfully requested to have videos of his matches removed, but Ibushi's behavior doesn't come off like he made any demands like that. But his decision to talk up rumors of DDT's business decline isn't going to help things one bit. It's a bridge burner, if I ever heard one, and not that far off from how we talked about New Japan when that relationship went sour. At least he hasn't said anything as extreme as who he suggested some pro wrestling companies were in bed with back then. I would also act weird if I had a match in GLEAT, which is not a real promotion. Let's be clear. It's not a real promotion. GLEAT doesn't really exist. Excuse me. So, the weirdness about Kota Ibushi has been, I think it's been around for a while, and I know a lot of people have pontificated these exact thoughts, but to be fair to myself, I really did have these thoughts myself on my own. I thought about it, and it's one of these things that popped into my head is like, Kota Ibushi has always been weird and he's always been strange, and He's always had his own way of doing things, and a lot of people would see this as a very good thing, and to a degree it is. But then, the falling out with New Japan, which I don't have an issue with, but the way that he did it, that's a little more savage. That's a little more wild. It's a little more extreme. Like, this is a guy who just, ends things. He just, I can understand wanting to go off and go to the beat of your own drum kind of thing. I can understand that and I can respect that. But there's a difference when you set ablaze relationships that you had by saying all sorts of wild, goofy shit. And clearly this is what's happening again. Like the blog post points out, it's nothing as bad as him accusing New Japan of being in league with the Yakuza, which is, something you just cannot do. I'm actually surprised he's still alive. Now, why hasn't he been back yet? Why hasn't he been wrestling? His shoulder injury was like 2 years ago, right? And he's been going around, he's been doing stuff in, DDT, well, at least, he did before he got booted, and he's wrestled in Gleed and he's going to do the thing in Marvelous. And in the meantime, Tony Khan is paying him a salary. Like, why isn't he home to a degree in AEW? Why isn't he coming to work? Now, I think there's like this understanding that Ibushi and Omega are supposed to return as a unit, as a duo kind of thing. But, I don't know. I don't know if, this is the point, right? It's like, I don't know if that's the plan, but what is up with it? Like, there's something odd with this guy. And I know there's a lot of people who, I don't know. I know there's a lot of people who like to, treat Kota Ibushi like he's a kid, like he's this goofy, wide-eyed thing. Like this has been going on for years, and you can just think back to the All In airport saga, right? When and that was the whole joke on Twitter that day when Kota Ibushi was lost, right? You remember that? You remember that thing where it's like, oh, isn't it cute? He can't get around an airport. And yeah, and it is funny for what it's worth, don't get me wrong. But like it feels like everyone sort of treats Ibushi like he's this, this lost little pet. He's sitting around giving interviews to New Japan with Hiroshi Tanahashi, and he's talking about how his days have 25 hours. And then he walks through the impossible math. So everyone's like, oh, he's so zany and wacky, such a weird guy. When in fact, like, I think there's something maybe, I don't want it, not dark, not sinister, but because those aren't the words, but something a little more unhinged. How about that? I think that's a good word. Something a little more unhinged to him, other than just being, a quirky dude. I've always loved Kota Ibushi, and I think everyone who talks about Kota Ibushi talks about him with a lot of appreciation, because what a fucking worker. That, like, worker in the sense of a great ring worker, just a tremendous pro wrestler, right? And I think those of us who got to see him when things were going really well and he was in his prime will always have found memories of that. But that Ibushi, man, he's gone away. He's gone, That's just how it goes. That's just how it goes. And he's gonna we'll see how things go, but I don't think he's gonna do pretty much anything in AEW now. Because the Ibushi we knew, he's not there anymore. Physically, he's shot. I don't think he can do it anymore. And now all of this on top of it, oh boy. Starting to look like a powder keg to me. That's it for the Kota Ibushi stuff. New Japan Pro Wrestling's Power Struggle 2024 is what we are about to review here. A show that I am going to review with great excitement with a good amount of joy. It is quite the departure from Royal Quest 4, which was, like 2 weeks ago or something like that, or a week ago. Wasn't it last weekend? Look, it doesn't matter. This is a completely different show. Here are the overall cliff notes. Okay, this show was really good. I'm going to use the word great a couple of times as we talk about this. I believe this is by far New Japan's best overall show that happened, and not just because it is very newsworthy, because it is. Oh, goodness gracious. It is very newsworthy. There's a lot of stuff to be talked about. And I think because of the fact that it's such a newsworthy show, that there's so much to talk about, I feel that we're losing in the quote unquote discourse the fact that this show was really good. Like, this was a more than solid. This was an enjoyable, highly entertaining pro wrestling card with some legitimately great matches on it that built to Wrestle Kingdom and Wrestle Dynasty in the meantime, while delivering just like great stuff. Like, if this is what we do on one of the big warm-up shows to Wrestle Kingdom, I'm sort of confident that Wrestle Kingdom is going to be a tremendous show. That's all there is to it. But the problem is that we have stuff happening on this show that feels controversial, or that people consider to be controversial, and it's removing what we really should be doing, and that's talking about how great of a wrestling show this was. We should be breaking down the matches. We should be talking about how the sausage was made in this circumstance here. But no, we're gonna sit around and we're going to hyper focus on some details, on some directions that are being undertaken, and we are going to blow them up to the point that it feels like some people are dooming, or some, whatever. And this great show that we had, poo-poo, we're gonna toss it aside. And I'm not gonna stand for that. Of course we're gonna talk about everything that happened. Like I said, it's not a show that is significant only because of the wrestling. There are multiple events that happened on this show that deserve to be spoken of, that deserve to be talked about, and that you probably even have an opinion on, and that's fine. I'm not saying that, but the main takeaway that we have to take away, great vocabulary, Warren. The main thing that we have to take away from this show is that it was a great wrestling show, not Shota Umino being in the main event of Wrestle Kingdom stinks, not Kenny Omega returning to a New Japan show and not an AEW show, not Ricochet doesn't feel like a big deal. Why is he challenging for the world title? Like, none of this stuff should distract you from this great show, if that makes sense. But I can't hammer this enough. I am going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about all these three things that we just mentioned as we get into the show. This show that happened on November 4th, 2024, from the Edion Arena, the old prefectural gym in Osaka, Japan. 3,773 people reportedly in attendance. This is, I believe, the third smallest gate that New Japan has done in the Edion Arena this year. They've been here multiple times. They've been to the arena, I don't know, like 6, maybe 7 times, something to that effect. But this is the third largest gate that they've drawn. The first one being the New Beginning show in February, then the first night of the G1, and now this. So just shy of 4,000, which isn't bad, and especially considering how other promotions are doing in the building, in the very same building. So, not a bad attendance. Should we be worried? Well, and et cetera. It's always the same question. But, things here, this is my takeaway with the roster that they've set up now and the people that they have set up now with Zach at the top and how things are shaking out with the downcycling of Hiroshi Tanahashi. Like he's on his retirement run, but it hasn't really kicked off. I feel like the retirement run is really going to kick off at Wrestle Kingdom this year when he fights Evil. I think that's really going to be the kickoff, and probably from that point on, you might see Tanahashi being booked in these bigger singles matches, and they're likely going to promote them more than this. So, and he was in a tag match that served to advance the angle for Wrestle Kingdom. So again, this is not going to be Tanahashi's last show in Osaka in the old Edion Arena. That's not what's going to happen. It's still going to happen. So my point being is that and even Naito was on the mid card on this with Zach at the top there, and the young guys being placed in these positions where they should be challenged into doing bigger, better things, and giving a big spot to the juniors and the Super Tag League finals, of course, which, junior heavyweight wrestling is not necessarily a draw, so considering all of these things being put together, considering that they really are trying to put together a different capable roster, right? That will need some time to grow on people. I think this number is pretty good. I think this number is good considering everything. We're not tearing the house down. This isn't necessarily the best case scenario. This isn't necessarily the best case, or at least this isn't starting off the case for Zack Sabre Jr.'s Hall of Fame induction to the greatest. It's not starting off on the greatest footing, that's for sure. But nonetheless, I would say 3,700, almost 3,800, isn't bad. I don't think this is a bad number overall. Why don't we begin with the business end of the show, right? We'll start with the main event and go down from there. How about that? We'll do that little sequence because I don't necessarily want to start by talking about, Ninja Mac and the DKC and Yo. That's not going to get the blood pumping. I've got other stuff we've got more important fish to fry here on this show. Zack Sabre Jr. successfully retained the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship by defeating Shingo Takagi in a tremendous match. Just a fantastic, tremendous match, as one would have preordained here, where in the match at the beginning, Zack Sabre Jr. has, he has majority control, right? He's doing Zack Sabre Jr. things and, putting Shingo in all sorts of twists. And, Shingo's doing his best. He's building up heads of steam to try and take down Zack, but Zack keeps breaking him down. He's twisting the neck. He's working the arms. He's weakening the knees, and the knees would be a significant component to the finish of this match. There weren't multiple finishes. There was one finish. It was the finish. And early on, there's this tremendous sequence between them both where they're just dropping each other on their heads. There's a big lariat by Shingo that follows. Zack Sabre Jr. Reverses out of made in Japan and into a lock, but then shortly thereafter, Shingo hits a made in Japan, and that connects. Afterwards, Zack Sabre Jr. starts working the knees a little more. Twisting snap suplex by Shingo, stays in control. And Shingo at some point locks in a sleeper hold and does it with the hooks synced in, just to make sure our boy stays in place, right? Just to make sure Zack Sabre Jr. doesn't go anywhere. And Chris Charlton screams out, "This is how Shingo Takagi defeated Zack Sabre Jr. 16 years ago, whatever the fuck, back in 2009 at the 16 karat gold tournament WXW." And I'm like, okay. I will never fault someone for preparing, right? That's the nature of being a play-by-play person, of being a color commentator. You have to prepare. That's fine. But no way in hell did Chris Charlton pull that out of, no way in hell did he just pull that out of the air. He's like, "Yes, I remember." No, like, he knew this was coming. He had it ready. By the way, Shingo Takagi won the tournament that year. Do you know who he defeated in the finals? I'm glad you asked. He defeated Drake Younger. Holy shit. Talk like how much things have changed since then. It is just bonkers. And after Zack gets out of the predicament, of course, lands a Zack driver and into a leg lock. And this lock that he has cinched in, Shingo does a tremendous, and I mean a tremendous job selling it. Like, it looks like the most painful thing in the world. Shingo's in panic mode. He's trying to reach the ropes. Zack is in control of the ground. Like, there's nothing he can do. It is fantastic. Shingo eventually also afterwards lands a Zack driver of his own. He goes for Last of the Dragon, and I love this so much. He goes for Last of the Dragon, and as he's lifting Zack goes right after the knees. He starts striking the knees. And so Shingo eventually is able to lift him up, lands the move, but can't cover because his knees give out. His knees are in pain. I love that so much. Just a little attention, a little detail that just made this feel logical. It just came together. It made a lot of sense. Zack Sabre Jr. then lands a German and the PK, but Shingo kicks out at 1. Shortly thereafter, Zack does lands a final Zack driver and wins the match. Absolutely phenomenal match. Exactly the kind of match you would expect from both these guys, who are just world-class, top-notch, some of the best pro wrestlers in the world, giving you some of the best pro wrestling you'll see. It's just as simple as that. What a fight. It's so good. 4.5 stars. Zack is so compelling and great, and he is at the height of his powers, and Shingo is tremendous. Look, we can always lament that it's a shame that Shingo is no longer being pushed in New Japan, and probably that ship has sailed. But the guy delivers 100% every time. Shingo cannot have a bad match. It's just tremendous stuff. After the match, Shota Umino shows up, and he comes out to challenge Zack Sabre Jr. for the World Heavyweight Championship to a chorus of boos once again. Like early on in the evening, he gets his cheers and he slaps hands and, does the babyface shtick, and he comes out at the end and people are happy to see him. But he comes out at the end and people reject him. It's such a weird, it's so weird how the dichotomy of these two reactions. Now, if you ask me right now, like the clearest thing is that the Japanese audience is rejecting Shota as a top guy right now. They're rejecting Shota as a guy who can main event and who can hang with, at the top. They're clearly saying we don't like him enough to be there. We're not ready for him or whatever. He's being rejected is the point. So he comes out and he challenges Zack. Zack says, sure. And Later on, I believe it is confirmed. No, it hasn't been made official, but we are all inferring and assuming at this point that Zack Sabre Jr. and Shota Umino at Wrestle Kingdom in the main event is going to be the thing. And that is much to the dismay of many people, many fans who, look, the Japanese fans are rejecting Shota right now. And there's a lot of North American fans that really don't like Shota as well. A lot of people anyway in my circles and in my haunts who have no time for the guy and don't think that he's up to snuff either. Feel like he's still wibbly wobbly on his identity, that he lacks the spark to really be a pro wrestler. So if if we go down the path where Shota has been cosplaying other wrestlers a lot, cosplaying may be a little harsh word. How about taking heavy inspiration from other professional wrestlers? He's got the Jon Moxley stuff. He's got the Hiroshi Tanahashi stuff. For a while, you could argue it had a little flavoring of Okada in here. Well, if he's going to turn heel and then have to go do the excursion to come back as a heel, basically, then we'll be cosplaying Naito and we'll have come full circle with the guy with having borrowed from some of New Japan's most influential and important pro wrestlers. So we might just come full circle on that one. And quite frankly, at this point, like if I'm Gedo, I'm asking myself, should I do it? Should I give it a shot? Because otherwise I'll just risk the opposite. Maybe I should just send him off. Maybe, you do the Wrestle Kingdom thing and he hits the bricks. He goes off, spends some time elsewhere. If you really wanted to push hard on the Naito thing, you have him go to Mexico, right? You have him go hang out in CMLL for a year or so, and then he comes back and he's developed himself a personality. He's developed himself, maybe he's even developed this fire that people say that he's lacking. Now, I always feel like I'm on the softer end of things when a pro wrestler starts being ganged up on by fans and people online. Like Adam Cole, for instance. I'm not. It's the same thing with Shota Umino. I'm not like sitting here screaming at the moon that he's great. He's had flashes of greatness. I think he's had flashes of greatness because he's wrestled in the matches that he's wrestled great people where you're like, well, of course you're going to have a great match with so-and-so. I thought his match with Gabe Kidd at the G1 this year was absolutely phenomenal. And I think that's a credit to both guys, actually. But I can see that he's still an unfinished product, and I feel like a lot of people are bearing down on him as if the expectation was him to be this fully fleshed out wrestler. Then again, I can't blame these people to feel the way they do because New Japan is presenting him as the next big thing, like the savior or whatever. So when there's other guys on the roster, other young guys on the roster who have shown more fire and more determination and more of that feeling than Shota has. So I'm not necessarily ready to cast him aside, but I'm also on the side of, is he really ready for a big spot like this? Is he ready for a main event at the Tokyo Dome against Zack Sabre Jr.? But then again, like, this is the question that I will gleefully ask any of you right now. And I have asked this before, just when people just a couple of weeks ago a month ago were questioning whether or not Zack Sabre Jr. was a good pick to be world champion and main event the Tokyo Dome. The question I then asked to you, and I didn't get any satisfactory answers. I'm gonna ask it again, but this time in regards to Shota Umino. If not Shota Umino defending or challenging, who else? Who else are you going to put there? Now, stop right there. You're all saying Yota Tsuji right now. I know you are. And this is another guy I really like. Yota Tsuji is tremendous. But in my very, very simple but yet based opinion, especially if you've listened to some of my recent reviews when it comes to New Japan Pro Wrestling, I believe that Yota Tsuji is he's a vibes wrestler. I think that's his destiny. I don't think he's going to be a work rate guy. I don't think, because we haven't seen the big work rate match. We haven't seen the match where Yota Tsuji runs in and just tears the house down with his skills. I think he's going to be a perfectly competent, good pro wrestler. Don't want to say just competent, but he will be competent and good pro wrestler who's going to live off of his vibes. And maybe once in a while, when the time comes, he'll bring out the big match. He'll have the big match. The comparison to Shinsuke Nakamura, I think, in that mindset, where Shinsuke, big charisma, huge crowd connection, big time guy, but wasn't a 5-star machine, right? Wasn't a guy who would just generate these tremendous matches every time. Good matches, good wrestler, but was a vibes guy. And I think that's what Shota is. Now, you could absolutely make the argument, I would prefer to have a vibes guy than Shota Umino. And okay, sure, yes. But I also think Shota is a better worker than Yota, despite it all. Look, if you would have preferred passion in your main event, and who doesn't, but someone that could inject energy, feeling, I think you're better off with Shota. But I think the match isn't as interesting. I don't think the end result is as interesting. And personally, I would much prefer to see Shota Umino in a sink or swim type of situation. And I think this is what they're willingly doing with him. Willingly putting him in a position where they're just throwing him into the deep end and they're going to see what happens. And I don't have a problem with that. And people think that the show was not going to draw because of this. That's the other thing. That's the other thing. It's like, oh, no, I've seen the comments. But from what I'm gathering, Wrestle Kingdom this year is on par to be selling more tickets than the past 3 Wrestle Kingdoms. So, and they've been selling before the show was announced. And we're not even done. They were selling before any matches were announced. Now we're starting to announce matches, and they still have some in the chamber. The more we're getting closer to the show, the more I'm convinced they're doing Tetsuya Naito versus Hiromu Takahashi. I think we're finally doing that match. I think we're finally there. Might be a little too late. That's a discussion for another time. But if you're looking for a match that's going to draw, there you go right there. There are no more guaranteed draws right now in New Japan outside of Tetsuya Naito. And you can't put Tetsuya Naito in main events and expect him to deliver main event calibers anymore. We have to be realistic about it. You still put him on the show because it's fucking Tetsuya Naito, but he can't be in the championship main event position. Although I have heard arguments in regards to putting Naito versus Hiromu in the main event nonetheless, which is compelling, don't get me wrong. I'm very excited to see how all this shakes out. And I think it is overall a bigger, better drawing match than Zack Sabre Jr. versus Shota Umino. Regardless, like, I mean, the logic is sound in this circumstance. So to be clear, I'm not saying Zack Sabre Jr. versus Shota Umino is a drawing show. It's a drawing match for a main event. But I am asking the question, what do they have on this card, on this roster right now that you can confidently sit back, point at, and say, this is the match they should be putting on? Would it have been Zack Sabre Jr. as champion versus Shingo? Like, I'm kind of surprised they burnt that out on Power Struggle, because I felt that would have been a great main event for Wrestle Kingdom. But that just goes to show you where New Japan feels Shingo falls on the totem pole. He's not a tippy top guy anymore. That's just their perception. But they're going to go with one of the young guys. Going with one of the young guys, is that something that sounds familiar? Is that a talking point that sounds familiar? Because for the better part of 2 years at this point, just about, people have been saying, put the new guys on the top, give them a chance, put them in Wrestle Kingdom in exciting spots, put them in top spots. And now New Japan goes ahead and does it. And now people are backtracking. Now people are like, no, don't do that. Or at least not Shota. But that's what we wanted. This is what we'd been clamoring for. 2 years ago when we had the G1 where all the new guys were put in the one same block and Sonata blew through everyone, we were all wondering what they were doing. And then when they went and put Sonata in the main event of Wrestle Kingdom, everyone wondered what the hell they were doing. Now this year, they have a G1 where everyone's in the mix. The new guys look good. Zack wins, freshens things up. We're going for the main event. We're going into Wrestle Kingdom in the top spot with Zack. And we're getting some new guys being thrown into the mix. It's Shota. Shota just happens to be the guy he's been selected. But I really do feel it's a sink or swim situation. I don't think this is a mistake. I don't think this is Gato just going, just put anyone in there. It doesn't matter. I think he's trying it out. He wants to see how it's going to happen, how it's going to shake out. If we get a great match out of it, what more do you want? If it bombs, it bombs. If it bombs at box office, that'll be even worse. But it'll also reflect on Zack Sabre Jr. It's not just a question of one guy here. It's an odd choice, but I feel like folks are reacting like this is still 2017 New Japan and all the top guys are there and healthy and ready to go. Because if you step back, if not Shota, who? Anyway, Shota, after doing the challenge, takes his leave, walks away, and then Ricochet shows up. His music, I'm still like confused and at a loss for words. Where I'm like, that was something I was not expecting. That was not something that I was expecting in any way, shape, or form. His music hits on the LED screen, and that of course distracts Zack Sabre Jr. because wrestlers and shiny things, which allows Ricochet to attack him from behind, from the audience. He runs in through the audience and attacks him from behind. He actually does like a springboard maneuver, right, off the top rope to attack Zack. And the man's he's in a full suit with dress shoes on. He's got dress shoes and he's pulling like flippy maneuvers, springboards. And I'm like, this is like props. That's impressive. I thought that was cool. So Ricochet cuts a promo, basically, saying I'm back and so on and so forth. And he says he wants to win the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. So he outright challenges Zack for the title at Wrestle Dynasty on the 5th, as opposed to the 4th, which is Wrestle Kingdom, which we are all assuming is the Shota Umino match at this point. But Ricochet's getting his shot at the belt on the 5th. And now we have some more discourse around this, where Zack Sabre Jr., what the hell is Ricochet doing? What has he done to deserve, to deserve a shot on this big show? He doesn't feel big enough to be main eventing in the Dome. What are we doing here? All this stuff. And again, look, in this circumstance, the argument of Ricochet versus being the guy to go after Zack Sabre Jr. not feeling big enough, I can understand. I actually kind of get it. You could have bigger guys, more important guys from the AEW roster challenge Zack Sabre Jr. Like more established, bigger AEW stars. Mox, for instance, Hangman, Swerve, Will. Although I think, we'll see how things shake out, but I feel they want to keep Will away for a little bit. Okada. I think these are the matches that people were half expecting, that they were kind of expecting, hoping maybe for Okada to come back and do a thing, but maybe they're also holding back on him for a little while. I don't know what to tell you here. I really don't know what to tell you. But I do think that there is when it comes to top guys in AEW, and this is not a knock on Ricochet as a talent, as a performer, because I still think he's great. There are higher ceiling guys on that roster than Ricochet right now that could have made for a more captivating challenger, one that would seize the imagination a lot quicker, than Ricochet. And again, I'm not trying to poo-poo on Ricochet. I'm just that's the vibe that you kind of get. And honestly, I kind of understand people who are a little disappointed at it. But the match is going to be cool. Here's the thing. Zack Sabre Jr. and Ricochet in a match is going to be cool. So at this point, why am I so worried about drawing power for the Wrestle Dynasty match? I mean, I'm worried to the degree of wanting New Japan to do sound business decisions to draw people so that they can have big gates, big houses, and continue being financially healthy and solvent and be able to pay the wrestlers and stop asking everyone to take pay cuts all the time because the houses aren't good anymore. So yes, you do want these good decisions to happen. But I can't knock this match. I can't look at this and I can't look at this and cross my arms and and pout, say, no, I don't want this. No, this is going to be a cool match. This is absolutely going to be a cool match. Is it is it the number one most compelling AEW versus New Japan match that they could do? No, not really. But maybe there's other things happening coming down the pipe that just might get the blood flowing a little more. I'll tell you one thing. Doki versus Sammy Guevara ain't going to be one of them. Anyway, Ricochet does the challenge and then sets up to attack Zack Sabre Jr. some more, which then brings in Shota Umino, who comes in to sort of stick up for his future challenge, right? He's doing the honorable thing. Comes in to chase off Ricochet. Meanwhile, Zack Sabre Jr. regains his senses and sort of attacks Shota, shoves him out of the ring, saying, I didn't need you. What the hell are you doing here? And Zack Sabre Jr. starts mouthing off at Ricochet, who is on the ramp, which allows Shota to attack Zack from behind, Death Rider him to boos. So again, like, I feel we're leaning into the heel stuff now. I feel like this is an absolute heel move to do. So is this going to work out? It just might. Like, I if anything, they have to sort of establish Shota to be the bad guy here. But then again, if they do, then if they are establishing Shota as a heel, the next time he comes out, he can't come out from inside the crowd. He can't be kissing babies and giving bracelets out, and he can't do that. And then walking backstage with, little styrofoam belts crafted by little kids. He can't do that anymore. He has to be the bad guy. He has to be a heel. He has to come out. He's got to do like Mox. He can't come out to Wild Thing anymore. He's got to do something else. That's the situation right now. And I thought the finishing segment was very compelling, was very good. To cap off a great match. I thought it finished off the show really well. I thought that was good. I thought that was a good match. I thought it was a good angle to end. You got your two big matches set up. You're establishing. Here's something that we're not talking about in this discourse: how Zack Sabre Jr. is ready, willing, and able to take all comers on. Right? They're establishing him as a man who has a target on his back, but he's ready to face all challengers. He's ready he's going to wrestle back-to-back nights in high-profile matches. But please, let's focus on whether or not Shota Umino is the guy or not. Over and over and over again. There are other forces at work that are being lost in this discourse here. And I've been 30 minutes just on this one match. We got 10 matches on this card. I mean, some we're gonna blow through fairly quickly, but there's some that we won't. Such as this one here, Zack Sabre Jr. Excuse me, we did that one. David Finlay retained the IWGP Global Heavyweight title by defeating Taichi. I thought this match was really good. I thought it was a tremendous match. But again, you've got Taichi in here, who has become a seal of quality in this company. When it's time to get the big match out here, he always does. And he brought good stuff out of Dave Finlay, and Dave Finlay looked tremendous. This was a big, hard-hitting, physical match, exactly what you expected. And I had a blast watching this, just laying into each other, dropping bombs on each other. And it really starts rocking and rolling when Taichi starts stringing offense together. That ends with a dangerous backdrop. Dangerous backdrop. Dave Finlay lands an into oblivion and does, those great power bombs, those great jackknife power bombs. And he just lifts Taichi and just hurls him across the ring as he's doing. It's just fantastic stuff. He does a Black Mephisto. Taichi, of course, kicks out. Taichi starts landing lots and lots of power moves. And he lands a Black Mephisto eventually himself. But Taichi can't get to the pin because he's hurt. He's banged up. In the meantime, Sanada has come to ringside. And I'm like, oh no. Because Taichi came out and he was with Taka Michinoku, right? And of course, Dave Finlay was with Bloody Hands Gedo. And during the match, Sanada comes out. And immediately, your wrestling brain has to start firing. Go boom, boom, boom. Oh, wait a second. Alert. Something's going to happen. A big turn. Now, I had heard, someone had told me, or had implied, I don't want to say that they told me, but had implied that someone on Power Struggle was going to be joining Bullet Club. And when I saw Sanada come out, and I saw Sanada come out in his tracksuit, and the tracksuit zipped all the way up his neck, all the way, right here, over his Adam's apple, it was probably pushing down on it. It was so zipped up tight. I was like, wait a minute. hang on a second. And even if you weren't armed with that information, you sort of look at it and you're like, wait, no, something bad's going to happen here. They're doing something with Sanada and it's not going to be good. Like, otherwise he would have come out from the start, right? Why does he choose to come out now? So Taichi covers, well, actually, that's it. Taichi does the Black Mephisto, right? Isn't that how it went? He does the Black Mephisto. He covers, but Sanada yoinks the referee out of the ring and the crowd goes nuts. And this was really well done because Taichi did not see who yanked the referee out of the ring. So he immediately thinks it's Gedo. But Gedo's on the other side of the ring and you can see Taichi's like, I don't understand. How did you do this and then carry your old lazy carcass, your old frail lazy carcass all the way around here? I don't understand that. All the way to the other side of the ring. It doesn't make sense. You can see he's having trouble processing the logic of what just happened. So, and eventually he just turns to Sanada, who's standing there, and Sanada just raises his arm and to his neck and unzips the tracksuit to reveal a War Dogs t-shirt. And that, sends Taichi into a tizzy, and everyone in the arena is booing, and a shillelagh shot to the back of Taichi's neck follows, and then Dave Finlay lifts him up for the into oblivion, the overkill for the win. So he retains on that note. Yeah, I thought this was tremendous. Look, here's the good thing. Here's the good thing. Sanada, no irony, over the past year has felt completely directionless and has fallen from grace. Like even commentary's was putting it over, right? And he had a match earlier in the evening against Umino, where commentary's putting over the fact that he's much more aggressive. He seems angrier, so on and so forth. They're sowing the seeds here. But they were, at the very least, we're watching this before we're watching the match before getting to the Bullet Club angle. And you're like, well, it's good that they're trying something else with Sanada because he does need a refresher. Like this Just Five Guys stuff was kind of fun at first, but boy, oh boy, has it become directionless and dry and boring.
Kind of like Sanada.
So, you couldn't have found a more appropriate name for that group than Just Five Guys, because that's always how they felt like, Just Five Guys. Nothing really special, no cohesion, Just Five Guys. That was legitimately the best way to call them. It was truly the best name, Just Five Guys. So you get to Sanada here, and they decide to do the turn. I think, like many observed, I think it is the best thing for Sanada, who has been directionless, who's basically been all but forgotten, or not forgotten, but tossed aside as a former IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. He's been losing right and left to all sorts of Jay Brones everywhere. When I mean Jay Brones, I mean all sorts of a variety of folks. He lost. He lost against Shota Umino at Power Struggle. He lost against Zack Sabre Jr. at Royal Quest 4. Had a fine G1, but lost to Zack, lost to Great O'Khan, lost to Tetsuya Naito, lost to Jake Lee. Let's not forget that. He was the original Jake Lee squash, right? So it's, he lost to David Finlay earlier this year. This is, that's been his trajectory this year. He's perceived to be a loser. He's a guy who fell from grace, from being the top guy in the company to just another guy, just 5 guys, but just another guy, right? And I can't but believe that this is legitimately the best thing for him. But here's something else that I observe. This is a guy now who in this group, he's going to be playing second fiddle to David Finlay. Like he's not the leader. He's not the top guy in this group. He's going to be one of the guys. He's playing second fiddle to Dave Finlay. One could even argue that he's third string behind Gabe Kidd in this group. And who knows what kind of, how far he's going to tumble in the hierarchy of this group once Jake Lee is healthy and comes back. Because they had plans for Jake Lee. Regardless of what you think and feel about Jake Lee, they had plans for this guy before he got hurt. And I don't think they're just going to throw them away and never think about them again. You just wait till he comes back. So could this be the impetus for a push? Yeah, but I think by this thing here, by being inserted into the War Dogs with Dave Finlay as the leader, I think the days, at least on a short-term, medium-term basis, I think the days of Sanada being a top guy are done. I think it's finished because Dave Finlay is a guy that is pushed and protected in this company. He doesn't lose willy-nilly, and when he does lose, it's usually a sign that he's losing up. Be very afraid, those of you who really, really dislike Dave Finlay, the day that he drops the global title, because he ain't falling back to wrestling for the KOPW championship. That ain't what's happening, pal. He's going after the top prize after that. This is just placeholder stuff for Finlay. So to summarize, Sanada joining the Bullet Club, good. Good for his career, good for his trajectory. He needed a shot in the arm. However, he is a second stringer. He's a third stringer in the group. And maybe this is where he feels comfortable in. There was speculation while he was champion that maybe he didn't like being the top guy of the company. And I can appreciate that because it's not everyone who's, not everyone is made for that type of situation. Maybe he hated it. Maybe he doesn't want anything to do with it anymore. Or maybe management was like, we're done with this guy. Like never put him up top there again. But we're still going to squeeze some juice out of him. And that's good. I think he still has stuff to offer. It'll be very interesting to see how the War Dogs influence his persona, his character, his personality moving forward, right? Because they are the aggressive group and Sanada's more of a, Sanada's Sanada. Where does this leave just 5 guys? I don't know. And frankly, I don't care. If we keep moving down the card here, Doki retained the Junior Heavyweight Championship. Oh, by the way, I gave Finlay versus Taichi 4.25 stars, and I gave 4.5 to Zach versus Shingo. I don't know if I mentioned that. But Doki versus Master Wato. Doki retained the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship by choking Master Wato the fuck out. This is very good. I thought this was a tremendous junior match. I love how they recounted the history between Doki and Master Wato all the way back to Wato's debut when Doki attacked him, establishing this as a full-on rivalry that these guys have a deep professional dislike for each other, and that Master Wato needs to overcome, and he couldn't do the job again. And this was solid stuff. The fantastic senton bomb by Doki off the top to the floor, and it looked tremendous, and it must have hurt as hell. Back in the ring, Master Wato lands the TCD, and there's a great sequence of ins and outs between them both. Ends with a dragon suplex. Kicks by Wato, suplex de la Luna by Master Wato. But then the match slowly comes to an end when Doki locks in the Doki Choki. I know it has another name, but Doki Choki is much more fun to say. Locks in the Doki Choki. Master Wato has this incredible struggle segment where he's trying to get out, and he manages to like briefly escape, but Doki is on top of it, just locks him back in a couple of times. He does this twice, and Wato is trying his best to stay out, but to get out and to stay alive in the match, but he just can't. Doki just like cinches in the chokey, and Wato just the referee stops the match. I love this finish. I love the finish. This is something that happened multiple times on this show where I'm sitting there saying, I love the finish. I love the finish to the main event, you know, with the last of the dragon thing and Zach punching the knees or kicking the knees, striking the knees. How about that? and here Wato trying to struggle out of the Doki Choki, and just he does his best, but he can't. And I thought that was fantastic. Just an extraordinary, finish to this. Great drama, good match, very good match on top of that. I gave this 3 3/4 stars. Just fantastic stuff. Just a great, a very good juniors match between these two guys here. But after the match, because there's a lot of that happening on this show, El Desperado shows up. Chris Charlton signaling that we weren't supposed to see him after the historic crossover show. Well, suck it, Charlton. He's showing up tonight. It was another nice surprise, and he cuts a fired up promo. Very, very fired up promo. Comfortable. You know, the El Desperado being El Desperado. And amidst challenging Hiromu, saying, you're next, buddy, or something to that effect or whatever, he challenges Doki to a match at Wrestle Kingdom. Doki, of course, accepts, or Doki says, yeah, let's do it at Wrestle Kingdom. It doesn't matter. They set up the match for Wrestle Kingdom. What I really liked about this segment, what made me, what really made me laugh, a good hearty ha when it happened. You know, when you have one of those, right? When you see something you really enjoy and you're not necessarily sitting around laughing, slapping your knees, but it brings you great joy and satisfaction, and you just go, ha! You're one of those. Ha! That's what when the Desperado ends his promo and drops the mic, but Doki's like, no, give me the microphone, and he picks up the mic, and you know, the music is playing, Desperado's music is playing, and commentary's playing, you know, is talking him off, you know, it's like, oh, we got to match it up, and oh, wait, Doki's not done, and he's tapping on the mic, and they cut the music, and he says, no, I am the champion, I just want a defense, we are not ending this segment, I'm getting the last word, because we are not ending this segment on this guy's music, we're ending the segment on my music, kind of thing, play my music. I thought that was tremendous. I thought that was a fantastic touch to end the match. It popped me. I liked it. You know, ha! That's what it was. 3 3/4 stars. I said it already. That's fine. Finals of the Super Junior Tag League 2024 saw the Ichiban Sweet Boys, Koze Fujita and Robbie Eagles, defeating Catch 22 in a tremendous match. And I cannot put this match over enough. This is absolutely, I mean, there's a couple of them, but man, I love Catch 22. That's all there is to it. Every time these guys are put in big time spots like this, they over deliver. They just create these situations and that are fantastic. They have such great chemistry and such great tag team affinity with each other. Like, it just blows my mind every time. I know it's cool to not like TJP, but quite frankly, TJP just might be low-key one of the best wrestlers we have had in this generation. But he's never going to get his props because of vaccine talk, right? Which, does in fact, I don't agree with it. But if anything, I have to be able to separate how I feel about, whatever dopey things whatever dopey conspiracy theories he wants to adhere to versus his in-ring work, which is fantastic. And I sincerely believe that he's going to go down in history as a guy who should have gotten more flowers than this. He is a tremendous pro wrestler. Francesco Akira, still to this day, one of my favorite juniors in New Japan. He's a top 3 guy for me. I fucking love Francesco Akira. Then you turn around and you got Robbie Eagles, who is phenomenal in his own right, and then Kosei Fujita, still fresh out of the dojo. Fresh out of the dojo, right? You know what I mean? Like, fresh out of his graduation, and kind of the wild card in this, where you're like, how is he gonna perform here? Well, he's gonna be great because he's surrounded by greatness, and greatness elevates everyone. This match was fantastic, fast, creative stuff, great moves. There's this great stretch where Fujita is attacking TJP, and TJP is giving him so much, and Fujita is just gobbling it up. He's being tremendous in this sequence, which was preceded by some fantastic submission work by TJP. They're the Katsu2 guys early on. They do their finisher, the what do they call it again? The Leaning Tower, right? Yeah, that's what they call it, the Leaning Tower. And they're setting up to do it, and Robbie Eagles breaks it up by doing a springboard rana to take fucking Francesco Akira out from the top rope. Just like bonker stuff, and it's not even the most compelling stuff yet, right? They eventually start kicking out of their tag team finishers. The TMDK guys, they hit the Sweet Buster, and Akira breaks up the pin. The Katsu2 guys land the Leaning Tower. Kosei Fujita breaks up the pin, and they go into a final sequence, which is one of the most dynamic, exciting, and creative final sequences I have seen in pro wrestling this year. And I am not even, it's not hyperbole, and I'm not overhyping it. It is legitimately one of the absolute fucking best finishes you will see in pro wrestling this year. I felt it in my bones. They're faking out each other on moves, like throughout the entire sequence. You think they're going to do something, but they fake out, they do something else, or they avoid and they transition into something. They're sliding in and out of moves, counters, pins, reversals, like until Eagles until Eagles does one of these, wacky submissions where he uses his whole body to get the pin. I think it was on TJP, and it sort of arrives out of nowhere, but in this crescendo of stuff happening, and everyone's on their seat, everyone's on the edge of their seat because everyone is already on their seat, so they move forward because they're excited, right? They're on the edge of their seat, Warren, and the place explodes. Like, just a tremendous finish. I still have goosebumps thinking about it. This is a 4.5 star match. I am wondering as I'm talking about it if I'm not going to jack it up to 4 3/4. I think I am. We're going 4 3/4 stars on this. That would make it my match of the night, and I am not even embarrassed about that. Like, there's no, it was just I adored this finish. This is a must-watch match. It is built so perfectly, a sprint of a 15-minute match. Like the conditioning on these dudes is amazing. I don't know what else to say. It was a phenomenal match. Just phenomenal stuff. Great ending to Super Junior Tag League. Are you looking for my thoughts on Super Tag League? What did you think about it, Warren? Oh, thank you for asking. I didn't watch it. The tag leagues in New Japan, I don't get invested in them. I wait till people start telling me, oh, this match was great, so on, and then I seek out those specifically. And it's the same thing with World Tag League. New Japan doesn't care about its tag team divisions. Why should I? Just as simple as that. So, but when we get great matches, I don't care what your weight class is. I don't care what your weight class is. I don't care whether you're in a tournament or not. If you've got great matches and I'll be entertained, I'll watch them and I'll enjoy them and I'll jump up and down if they start breaking my mind. No, this was absolutely phenomenal. I don't know if I'm the high man on this, but this match was absolutely fantastic. I think this is the match of the night. I think it's the match of the night. I think Zack and Shingo was a close second, very, very close second. But this, do yourself a favor. You like pro wrestling? Do you like pro wrestling? You enjoy watching some good old-fashioned pro wrestling that won't overstay its welcome, that'll entertain you, that you'll get some high spots, you'll get some great psychology and a fucking fantastic finish. If you like all of that, this is the match for you. Go right ahead and watch it. Go, do it. And after the match, the TMDK guys, Ichiban Sweet Boys, they call out the champions, the Intergalactic Jet Setters, Kushida and Kevin Knight, and they challenge them for the fight and at Wrestle Kingdom, which then the Jet Setters accept, but then they also like, wait a minute, Catch 2-2, get your asses out here. And Catch 2-2 comes out and they say, these guys are all good and all, these finals winners, but you guys beat us in the tournament, so why don't the three of us make it a date for Wrestle Kingdom? And then the War Dogs attack, the War Dogs being Clark Connors and Joel Maloney, and they take everyone out, and they're like, well, we're here too, whatever. They cut a promo. So basically what we're going to be getting at Wrestle Kingdom is the antithesis of what I enjoyed in this match here. That is a four-way where a couple of undeserving teams are here. I mean, look, here's the thing. The argument right now is, oh, well, doesn't this reduce the significance of TMDK winning the Super Junior Tag League this year if they have to share their tag team title shot with two other teams? And I say yes, but also who cares? It's the Super Junior Tag League finals. Who cares? Like it's okay. If they were doing this with the G1, yes, I would absolutely be up in arms and I would be having conniptions. But it's the Super Junior Tag League. Again, I ponder the question upon you. Who cares? Let's see. What should we do next? Well, just before the Super Junior Tag League finals, Kenny Omega came out for his scheduled appearance on the show, and he had a tremendous reception from the Osaka crowd. People chanting his name. He even had to delay the start of his promo a little bit. People were really into it. You can tell that the Osaka crowd, anyway, were very, very excited to see him back. And he cuts a promo in majority in Japanese. Of course, Chris Charlton was translating as best he could as we went along, basically calling, saying how great it felt to be back, so on and so forth, and being Kenny. And ultimately, he says that if and when he's ready to come back, he wants to come back in a New Japan ring, because New Japan will always be home, and it will always be home, and will always be the best professional wrestling in the world. Don't worry, we'll get to it in a second. And essentially, he lays out a challenge where he says, I don't know who I'm facing yet, but I'm probably going to come here to fight one of these new guys that you have hanging around in New Japan now and test myself against one of this new generation that I keep hearing about. And has a very affable, very fired up promo as well. Does his catchphrase, and he leaves, only to be attacked backstage by Gabe Kidd. We are told that Chris Charlton I have just been told that Gabe Kidd has attacked Kenny Omega. I haven't seen the backstage comments because I'm recording this pretty much immediately after having watched the show. I watched it on Monday, on the 25th. But I wanted to get this all settled and out of the way. But I'm sure there will be footage of that happening. So it would appear that Gabe Kidd is the guy. So let's get this out of the way first and foremost. I think it's a really good idea to put Gabe Kidd in this spot. I think Gabe Kidd is having an incredible year. I think Gabe Kidd has silenced a lot of detractors that he had with the year that he has had. I think he had a tremendous G1. He has shown that he can show up in big match when it's time for the big match. I think he's shown up, and he has developed and matured into a character that is still very much, the madman, but more focused, not as spread out and brain-addled, I guess would be the best way to put it. He's been phenomenal this year. I think out of we keep talking about, when we talk about the new guys in Japan, in New Japan, we always talk about Shota, we talk about Yota Tsuji, we talk about Narita and Yumera and Oiwa as well. But Gabe is always on, for some reason, he's always on the periphery, probably because he's a gaijin, but he's always on the periphery, and yet he has ingrained himself as someone who is very significantly important to this future vision for New Japan. And I think he wants to be a part of that. And I think he feels like he has a home in New Japan. Now, if they're serving him up, when I say they, I mean the bookers, AEW, New Japan, if they are serving him up to Kenny Omega on his return match, folks, that is a vote of confidence for Gabe Kidd. You can't see this through any other lens, I believe. This is an absolute vote of confidence for Gabe Kidd that he is going to be able to tussle with Kenny and hang on his level and deliver a great match, because that's what people are expecting out of a Kenny Omega match, and especially on a return match. Now let's talk about this return match that is happening on New Japan soil, not in an AEW ring. New Japan is getting the Kenny Omega match back, the first Kenny Omega match back, not AEW. What? I get, poor booking by Tony Khan. It is just despicable, awful. No wonder companies in the mud, etc., etc. That's what I would say if I didn't have. That's what I would be saying if I were a complete fool. If I were a fool, that's what I would be saying. But contrary to popular opinion, I am not a fool. I want you to think about something here. I want you to remove yourself from the wrestling bubble where everything is always connected, that you and I spend our days thinking about and looking in the, reading through Discords and X the Everything app and whatever. I want you to think about this in a completely different way. one that is not poisoned by weird analyses, okay? How does Kenny Omega having his first match back be in Japan be a bad thing for AEW? How is this going to impact AEW? I sincerely believe that AEW fans are going to be excited for Kenny Omega's return to AEW, regardless as to whether or not he had a match on pay-per-view in Japan or not. That's what I think. And you know deep down in your heart that it is not going to change a thing. People are going to say, this is some of the things that I've heard. He's not going to pop a rating when he comes back because he's already had his match. People are not going to start tuning in because he's back, because he already had his match. You realize how insane that sounds? Because he has one match in Japan on pay-per-view, suddenly this immediately means that everything is going to be negated for his return on free American television. Well, free as long as you pay for cable, but you know that the point remains. You're not paying extra for the show. It's such a weird take. I don't understand it. How one becomes detrimental to the other in this circumstance makes no sense to me. In completely different markets on top of that. And I am pretty confident that Kenny Omega is going to return to AEW before going to do the match at Wrestle Dynasty. Because they're going to want to hype that match too. Because you know what? Why would they want to hype this match? I'll tell you. Because it's co-promoted. It's a co-promoted show. AEW's name is up there. It's a co-promoted show. So of course they want this to be a success. Of course they want this to, they want the Japanese show to work. And it will have no impact as to the level of excitement that people will feel for Kenny Omega's return. Kenny Omega's fans are going to tune in to AEW to see him back on his first night, just like they'll be excited to see him on pay-per-view in Japan if they shell out the bucks for it. That's a whole other. How many people are legitimately going to have this thought process? Oh, well, I'm not going to watch Dynamite this week because Kenny Omega already had his first match in Japan, so why would I watch it? That's just nuts. Like, it doesn't make sense. Oh, I probably won't order the next pay-per-view because Kenny Omega has a match on it, but he already had a match in Japan. Like, again, this is nuts. His first match back in AEW is going to be a big deal regardless. It's going to be the biggest deal, in fact. And they're probably going to line up a big opponent for him. They're probably, if they're smart, if Tony Khan is smart, he's going to build up Kenny Omega versus Kazuchika Okada. He's going to give us the MSG main event that we were cheated out of. Because of the COVIDs, right? He's going to give us that at whatever fucking pay-per-view he wants. And then are people not going to tune in because, he's already had his match in Japan? It's a bit of a bird brain take. And there's people that I really like who had that take, and no disrespect to them, but I think it's a bird brain take. It baffles my mind as if it's this, as if we're back to dooming again. We're back to dooming. And people say, oh, you're struggling to fill houses. You shouldn't be sending your main eventers doing their first match back from injury in Japan. It's an entirely different territory. You're telling me that you won't be able to sell a few more tickets on Kenny Omega's first show back in the United States, or North America for that matter, you think you're not going to be able to do that because he had his first match back in Japan? Now, I would be having an entirely different conversation with you if Kenny Omega had his first match back on a New Japan Strong show, like in Lowell, right? Massachusetts. And that's his first match back. Then I'd be like, yeah, you know what? This is kind of lame. Now you're sort of burning the opportunity because you're in the same market as AEW's in the same market here. Why wouldn't AEW want to keep that to generate interest for its own show and get more people to come in? No, you get your match in Japan. You hopefully it'll be, and likely will be, a great match, so that if anything, we'll get people more hype. The reaction button, the doomer alarm gets set off so quickly when it comes to AEW. I don't understand it. This perception exists only with wrestling-brained people like myself, who, yeah, that's all they focus on everything, but and see all the connections, but sometimes are just unable to break apart the filaments here and realize, well, yeah, you know what? It doesn't really matter. It's not going to come together. And I think this is going to be a moot point regardless when Kenny Omega, over the course of the fall, shows back up on AEW television regardless. And he just might have a match at Full Gear. He might. I'm not saying he will. I'm saying he might just have a match at Full Gear. And I wouldn't be surprised. And I love how, Tony Khan would hype it. Here's the thing. Tony Khan would not. You're thinking Tony Khan would hype the return of Kenny Omega? No, he dropped that as a surprise. Instead of doing the logical thing, which would be Kenny Omega returns next week on Dynamite to get some little ratings juice going. No, he just saved that as a surprise and wouldn't announce it and doesn't care for, selling any more tickets or whatever. And just like, nah, that's fine. That's something that's plausible. That would actually happen. That, I believe, would actually happen because we have history. We can point back to booking history with TK to see that he would actually pull this kind of stuff off. But again, like everything that I'm getting excited about, that I'm getting riled up with, I should say, it's all going to be a moot point. I can feel it in my bones that Kenny Omega is going to return on AEW television in a couple of weeks, and everyone is going to feel really stupid. Everyone's going to feel really, really stupid. And if he's not going to return, even if he doesn't, it's not going to change a goddamn thing for how people in North America are going to react to his return. They're not going to be any less excited. They're not going to be not purchasing tickets to see him live on his return match. Let's get real here. Let's get real. Let's blow through the rest of the card really quickly, starting from the top maybe. Ninja Mac, the DKC, and Yo defeated Capitan Suicida, Tiger Mask, and Shoma Keto in the kickoff match. That's fine. We had a 10-man tag team match where Clark Connors, Drilla Maloney, Gabe Kidd, Robbie X, and Taiji Ishimori defeated the Intergalactic Jet Setters, the Velocities, and Katsuya Murashima, who I would assume is about to go on. He's gotta be soon going on excursion, right? He has to be on his way out soon. I would assume he's got to be, at least he's next, right? He's got to be next. I thought this was very good. Well, very good. Pump the brakes. I thought this was good, like a real good 10-man match. I give it 3.25 stars. I was thoroughly entertained with the official opener of the pay-per-view, but I don't have any more notes than that. The LIJ team of Tetsuya Naito, Yota Tsuji, Hiromu Takahashi, and Bushi defeated Dragon Dia and Rizuke Taguchi, accompanied by Tomoaki Hanma and Toru Yano. It's exactly what you figure this match would be. It's fine. Look, we don't have to speak on it any longer. Evil and Ren Narita defeated Hiroshi Tanahashi and Bolton Oleg. Yeah, again, this is another match that you know exactly how this went down. Lots of House of Torture shenanigans, and all basically leading to Evil. This all leading to Evil getting the upper hand at the end and beating down Tanahashi and teasing cutting his hair. Now, are we going to get ourselves a good old-fashioned hair versus hair match at Wrestle Kingdom? Is Evil going to be going bald? Is he going to go full Kyle Fletcher on us? That's very interesting. And also, that what happened after this match, Ren Narita lays out Oleg, and Oiwa shows up, and so does Jeff Cobb. And all three of these guys sort of get into each other's faces, and we are clearly setting up a three-way for the TV title for Wrestle Kingdom. And again, more multi-man matches, and I am not into it, especially when it comes to titles. Y'all already know this, how I feel. So, yeah. And then we had Shota Umino defeating Sanada. A fun little match. I enjoyed this. I enjoyed it. I give it 3.25 stars. I enjoyed it. I thought it was. I thought they worked really well, and told the story of Sanada just being angry and pissed, and just setting everything up for later. Well done, lads. I was impressed. Shota wins with the Death Rider. There you go. That was the Power Struggle show. As per usual on most of these New Japan cards, you can skip the undercard, right? It's just you can just move on and forget about it. But I thought the business end of this show. Wait, I'm forgetting something. No, I'm waiting. Hey, hang on. The tag team title match. Hey, I was forgetting something. I was forgetting this. The United Empire duo of Great Okan and Hinare defeated TMDK to become the new IWGP World Tag Team Champions. So going into World Tag League, they're going to be champs. I give this match 3 stars. I don't have many thoughts on it. I think it was perfectly serviceable, a good match, and, one that you will never think of again. But I guess it's exciting because things are set up for I guess things are exciting for World Tag League. I don't know. It doesn't get me excited for World Tag League. Then we get the Kenny Omega spot and the rest of the show. So, honestly, from Kenny Omega on, it's just a series of really good to great matches. So if you just want to watch the whole, just that part, you've got easily 4 matches that will thoroughly entertain you. But up and down, the undercard, you want to see the stories, you want to see everything happen. Go right ahead, but I thought this was a really great show overall. I think I was saying very good at the first when we opened it. I'm just going to go out with great. I think it's New Japan's best effort this year, without a doubt, actually. Lots of things happening, exciting stuff, and just some quality matches. As soon as the Super Junior Tag League finals kick in, you just have some tremendous matches. Great card. I highly recommend it. Enjoyed it, and I hope you do too. New Japan Power Struggle 2024. That's the review. And on that note, we are going to wrap up this week's edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. Thank you very much for joining me, for allowing me to enter your ear holes this week with more of this pro wrestling nonsense. I will, of course, be back on Thursday with another edition of the AEW Dynamite review. I will also be back in the saddle streaming on Thursday, unless once again the unexpected happens. But I'm pretty sure things are settled now. I think everything's okay. So I'll probably be back Thursday for a live stream and business as usual. Just wonderful business as usual. Next week we're going to be we're going to have some stuff to review. We're going to have the Fighting Spirit Unleash the show to review, among other things. And you know, it's pro wrestling. There's always stuff going on. Anyway, thank you all for joining me. I appreciate it. Go watch some Randy Orton and then get back to me, and I'll see you next time.